Blog Talk Radio.
Live from Grimsby on Freedom Talk Radio Network, the Families Reunited show with your host, Andy Peacher, every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. UK time and 2 p.m. Eastern Time, USA and Canada. Call Andy when the phone lines are open. UK call number is 0131 618 7778. And from the USA and Canada, call 315 642 4100. Visit the website on www.freedomtalkradio.co.uk. Download TuneIn Radio and do a search for Freedom Talk Radio and listen on the move. Visit Andy's website www.parentsinjustice.co.uk and Andy's forum parentsinjustice.proboards.com.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us this lovely Thursday. This is Andy Peacher and Bob Honecker. This is Freedom Talk Radio. This is the Families Reunited show, live from Grimsby and Amsterdam. We will get these jingles changed, the promos, to include our good friend Bob. Just that sometimes you don't know what other people are doing and you don't know whether to include them on the jingles. But Bob is a long friend of mine, and families would not be reunited without Bob Honecker and You're Not Alone, the Facebook website, UNA.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is freedomtalkradio.net, and you are listening to Freedom Talk Radio.
From beautiful Saline in southeastern Michigan.
Around the world.
This is the 2009 Top 10 Webcam in the World winner. This is SETV.
freedomtalkradio.co.uk. This is the most diverse, most amazing, one of the funniest radio stations you could ever listen to on the internet. I've heard so much stuff from the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, the politics, the non-politics, the schmolitics, whatever you want to call them. It's great.
Yeah, welcome back. This is Andy Peach and Bob Honecker. This is Freedom Talk Radio, the Families Reunited show. Tonight we have on Jacqueline. Jacqueline is from elderrange.com. She's written a book called Elder Age. Elder Age is basically about a book about how to deal with the issues regarding getting old and the illnesses that go with that. So Elder Age, the book, is on the Month Club selection on Amazon, a caregiving book, first receiving 400 plus 5-star Amazon reviews. That's a fantastic amount of people reviewing this book. It's a riveting, often laugh-out-loud, humorous non-fiction novel chronicling Jacqueline Marcell's trials, tribulations and eventual success at managing the care of her aging parents. Elder Age is also an extensive self-help book with creative solutions for effective management, medically, behaviorally, socially, legally, financially, and emotionally of challenging elders who resist care. Elder Age includes answers to difficult caregiving questions, such as how to get obstinate elders to accept cleaning and caregiving help, see a different doctor, give up driving, attend adult daycare, eat, take medication, sleep and bathe properly, move to a new residence, and so on. there's a lot of bio here about the book, but I want to read this bit about under the question and answer section, valuable resources and recommended reading, the extensive addendum by renowned neurologist, dementia specialist Rodman Shankel, MS.MD, A Physician's Guide to Treating Dementia, help make elder age required reading, or at numerous universities for courses in geriatric assessment and management. It is also considered for a film. Elder Age is endorsed. This is why you need to buy this book. I don't know the names personally, but somebody in the US will. By Hugh Downs, Regis Philbin, Steve Allen, Ed Asner, Jacqueline Bissett, Dr. Harold Bloomfield, John Bradshaw, Pam Dorber, Freddie Cordova, Phyllis Diller, Duke University Center for Aging, and many great names, Victor Hansen, Johns Hopkins Memorial Clinic, Dr. Irene Casarola, Dr. Nancy Schneiderman from ABC News, Robert Stack, Dr. Eric from Tangalos Mayo Clinic. There's just so many endorsements for this book and 400 plus reviews. It's just an amazing book, and hopefully very shortly we'll talk to the lady herself, Jacqueline, but first, because I've been talking a lot about the book and playing the commercials, welcome to the show, Bob. I hadn't forgotten about you. I just had a couple of doggy issues to sort out.
Yeah, give little Bonnie a hug for me, okay?
I will do, yeah. I mean, we've got, we work with child abuse quite a lot, and people work with elder abuse, elder age abuse. It's all kind of very similar and linked. I haven't turned it into animal, not yet anyway.
Well, that's something my wife does. So abuse is abuse, point blank. Be it elderly abuse, be it neglect, you name it. Be it abuse to dogs, neglect to any kind of animal. I don't care. It's abuse and it needs to stop.
Exactly, it does, Bob. And I've met some people recently. I mean, to me and you, it sounds a bit bizarre, maybe, but plant abuse, believe it or not, crops, fields, anything, trees, the water, the ocean, the skies, the moon, people, try to prevent abuse of animals and plants and vegetation. I guess that's why our planet's got problems, because we're not looking after it, and we're not looking after the people and the creatures on it.
No, that reminds me of the song "The End" by The Doors. What are we doing to our poor Earth? And there are signs out there that are saying that Mother Nature has had enough. Look at the tsunamis. Look at the different earthquakes going on. Look at the polar vortex that's hitting the United States at this moment. And I thank the Lord, even though I'm not very religious. I thank the Lord that these subjects about elder abuse, child abuse, human trafficking, the different nature things going on. People are starting to wake up, and I think 2014, and my best wishes to everyone that's listening. I think 2014, something really is going to happen. Either it be a natural disaster, or the people in the Congresses and the governments in the world are actually going to wake up and maybe change some of the rules and regulations. I mean, the plant abuse. Look at the spraying going on. That is not good for the plants, and it's not good for the consumer as well, because we're getting all that poison in. So, I mean, I'm ready for tonight, buddy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'll just let everybody know, elderrage.com. That's ELDERRAGE.com. And elderrage.com is, I've forgotten her second name now. It's Jacqueline Marcell, I think, is the author of that book. And as I mentioned, 400 plus reviews, many professionals involved in saying, well done, Jacqueline, on that one. So I'm just going to play a little track. She's probably thinking I've forgotten, just because I've had a bit of an illness and we had to reschedule. But before we get you on, Jacqueline, here's your promo MP3.
This is Jacqueline Marcell, the author of Elder Rage, or Take My Father, Please, How to Survive Caring for Aging Parents. If you're coping with caregiving now or think it is just about to befall you, you just have to read my book so you don't needlessly go through all the pitfalls that I did. It's a tough subject, but I promise laughter out loud as you learn everything you ever wanted to know about elder care but were afraid to ask. After you learn how I solved the seemingly endless crisis, I include answers to the toughest caregiving questions, tons of resources, and an enlightening chapter by a renowned dementia specialist, a physician's guide to treating dementia, which makes Elder Rage valuable for everyone from the family to the physician. I am honored that Elder Rage has received 45 prestigious endorsements, including Hugh Downs, Regis Philbin, Dr. Dean Adele, Duke University, and Johns Hopkins Memory Clinic. For more information that may change your life, please log on to elderrage.com.
Well, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you, Jacqueline Marcell, from elderrage.com. You've got myself, Andy, and Bob. Andy, that's me, from Grimsby in the UK, and Bob is an American-born living in Amsterdam. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Hey, hi, you guys. Thanks for having me.
You're always welcome.
The honor's all mine, ma'am. Welcome to the show, and yeah, let's make some waves.
That's a good idea. What we normally do at this stage is kind of, you tell everybody about the book, and then we'll ask questions. Bob will probably go first after you've, told everybody about everything about the book and who's involved and what you're trying to do with the book, and not just the book, but the information contained in it. Bob will ask you questions, and then I've got a few teasers because I like to look at both sides. It's all about the same subject, obviously. About Alzheimer's, it's about looking after the elders, and yeah, so we'll go from there if you don't mind. But I did see something that I wanted to point out first, and I've lost it. Is it that one? No. So it's from your website, and I've lost it. Oh yeah, that one, I think. Yeah, no. I was going to read out the so many signs of Alzheimer's, and I've lost it.
Oh, that's okay. You want me to? Let me give you an overview about what I'm doing here.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So yeah, I live in Southern California, and I had to go to the Bay Area to help my mom and dad, who had always been there for me my whole life, and got up there and thought I was going to be there for a few weeks getting help for them put together, and I was there for almost a year without a day off. And my dad, who had always been very challenging growing up, he had a bad temper. It was never at me before, but now it was, and very controlling and dominating, and my mom needing full-time care, and he'd taken good care of her for many years, but she'd had a heart attack, but he refused all help, and I'd already spent years trying to help him get caregivers in place, and I'd get them in place, and he'd throw them out of the house. But now he couldn't do it anymore, and he was just, she almost passed away from his inability to continue to care for her. And I thought, well, you know, he's got to accept help now. He just has to. I mean, of course he will. Well, he still wouldn't. And so I went through all this incredible experience. I was just so shocked that I couldn't get the help that I needed. I'm fairly bright. I'm not shy. I'm in a major metropolitan area of the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm begging for help from the healthcare professionals, and the ones that I happen to come in contact with were not directing me properly. So one day Dad would be, you know, my loving dad, and then the next day he'd scream and yell about some silly little thing and throw me out of the house, or just, and I'd be crying and, you know, trying to plead with him, and then I'd take him to the doctor, and he'd be totally darling and normal and sane in front of the doctors, and they're looking at me like, you know, what are you trying to pull? So I couldn't get any medication to calm him down, because the doctors, he was just so adorable in front of them. And I couldn't leave him alone with Mom once I finally got her back out of the hospital. That took 3 months from his inability to continue to care for her, so I couldn't leave her alone with him. I couldn't get caregivers to stay because he would be so nasty and throw things at them and just say such horrible things to them. Nobody would stay anyway. And so I was like, oh, my gosh, I'm in like this caregiver catch-22 where once I finally did get medication to calm him down, he threw it in my face. He flushed it down the toilet. He, you know, cupped it under his tongue and spit it at me. So I was just trapped. How am I going to leave my mom alone with him when she needs full-time care, and he refuses to allow anybody in the house to help him? So I have to stay till I figure this out. And I thought, well, I learned perseverance and determination from my father. Now I'm going to use it on him. I inherited it, and I learned it from him. And, wow, I didn't realize what I was in for. And once I finally figured it out in every way, I was just so angry. I was just infuriated. Why didn't any of these social workers, doctors, physical therapists, occupational therapists, you know, all these people that I've been begging for help from, describing what's going on, why haven't I been directed properly? Once I finally solved it, I said, my gosh, I've got to write a book. I've never written a book. I didn't write it to become an author and write books. I just was infuriated and felt like I had to tell other people what I had learned the hard way so they don't have to go through it. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just sat down and it just started pouring out of me, because my best friend, every time Dad would throw me out of the house, I'd go stay with my best friend since kindergarten, Linda. And every day I'd come back and I'd tell her what had happened, and she said, oh, my God, Jacqueline, you got to write a book. I'm like, oh, Linda, I'm not writing a book. The last thing I want to do is relive this. Are you kidding me? But after I finally did solve it, I thought, gosh, she's right. There's just no way to educate other people. And I just started. It just poured out of me like a catharsis. You know, it was like 600 some pages when I finished. I had to edit that down. And then I sent it off for endorsements. And, gosh, I think there's over 100 now. And then from professionals and stuff. And then the doctor, Dr. Rodman Schenkel, I sent it to him just for his endorsement. He said, oh, gosh, I love it so much. I'm going to not only endorse it, I'm going to give you this chapter for dealing with dementia from a physician's standpoint. So a protocol, for particularly the aggression aspect that occurs. And that's what was happening with my father. He was getting dementia, which nobody uncovered, and how, you know, his lifelong behavior pattern of that screaming and yelling and pounding, spitting, spewing when he got angry was now coming out over things that were somewhat illogical and irrational, but intermittently. So he gave me this chapter on that, and that's helped make the book required reading at numerous universities for courses in geriatric assessment and management. So I'm very honored by that. And then after the book came out, I started getting offers to speak, and so now I've spoken at hundreds of conferences. Even before the Florida House of Representatives, I was on the floor of the Florida House of Representatives talking to 200 legislators for an hour and a half. So that was big. That was really a highlight. And it's just turned into a mission for me to help other people. And so I do radio shows. I had my own radio show, Coping with Caregiving. I just stopped doing that after many years when the station was sold. So I'm just, I don't know, it's like when you get so empowered by something that you just, can't wait to get to do it again and help other people with something that you learned. It's really, I always tell people sometimes when life takes you to your knees and nearly destroys you, it can be the catalyst that propels you, that puts the spark in you, that leads you to a higher purpose, a higher passion, a higher reward in life than you would have experienced otherwise. So if somebody told me that I would be doing this, I'd say, are you kidding me? I had been a professional photographer, cinematographer. I taught at the university level, and then I was a television executive for 20 years. And then everything took a left turn when I had to help my parents, and my whole life stopped in every way. And isn't that funny how it led me to something that's just so much more important to me? So the biggest thing that I wish I had known and how I finally solved this was, are you guys still there? Hello?
Definitely.
Yeah, we're still there.
Oh, okay. I'm like, did I lose you?
No, we're chatting to each other on the Skype because, we're coming up with ideas, that's all, and questions and answers.
Okay, so let me tell you, I just maybe I want to make sure I didn't lose you there. But anyway, so the biggest thing that I learned after, almost a year into this, a friend of mine said, why don't you call the Alzheimer's Association? And I said, my father doesn't have Alzheimer's. He knows what he's doing. He's always been controlling and dominating. He doesn't want anybody in the house. He's just so stubborn. He thinks he can still do it, and he can't. He can't. And so I've got to persevere and figure out, well, all right. Why don't you call them anyway? All right, I'll call them. But what could they possibly know that all these doctors, all these healthcare professionals that I've, been seeing for months and taking Dad to, which was no small feat to get him to go, what could they possibly know that I, haven't been told yet? So I did, and that's when the light bulb went on. They showed me the 10 early warning signs of Alzheimer's disease. And I looked at and I read each one. I said, yeah, he's doing that. Yeah, he's doing that. Yeah. He's doing all of these. But aren't these just a normal sign of aging? I mean, he's, early 80s. I mean, come on. Isn't this just what happens? And that's when they put the knowledge in me that I was so mad nobody had done before. So you can get those 10 warning signs right now off my website for free. Just go to elderrage.com. Scroll down on the left. You'll see the 10 early warning signs. Click those out. Print them out. Put them in a little spiral notebook. And if you're, dealing with a loved one that's getting older, or if it's you, and you want to keep track of some of these things, these are what you want to know. My mission, as with all of us advocates in this field, is for people to recognize these symptoms earlier and not just chalk them up to old age. So everybody goes, oh my gosh, I lost my keys this week. I lost them last week. Am I getting Alzheimer's? If you remember where you finally found them and you didn't find them in the microwave, someplace you would have never put them, we all do that. We're distracted. We're, going here, going there. So it's learning the difference between normal aging, which happens to all of us. Just think of your brain as, sometimes it's got to reboot. You're trying to remember something, and shoot, what was that again? And you're thinking, and then, you go on to something else, and a minute later, it pops into your head, or 5 minutes later, that's what it was. Well, that's just your brain needing to reboot like a computer to spit out the answer. And that just happens to all of us as we get a little bit older. But if it doesn't come back, or if somebody says to you, you just told me that, and you say, I did? Yeah, 10 minutes ago. You just told me that whole long story about Kathy. I did? Yeah. You don't remember that? No. That's when you want to be concerned. It's the short-term memory that is the problem, not the long-term, because I'll say to people, how's your mom's memory? Oh, my gosh. She will tell you what, they ate at, where they went, and what they did after the Easter parade in 1962. Does she remember where she ate for lunch today? No. Or what she had? I'm noticing that. She's not, So it seems obvious to those of us that have been in this for a long time, the difference between short-term and long-term memory. But, I didn't know about that when I started. I had no experience with elder care, no grandparents, no elders around me growing up, so it wasn't in my realm. It wasn't in my knowledge base to know a thing about this. So that was a big when the light bulb went on, when I saw those warning signs, and I was just so infuriated. And then the Alzheimer's Association helped me find a team of doctors, and what you need is neurologists who are specialized in dementia. Because I took Dad to a neurologist, and she said, what day is it, what time is it, who's the governor? She did the mini-mental state exam where they run through the questions, and well, for a man his age, not too bad. But you can't do that. I mean, dementia's intermittent. It comes and goes in the beginning. It's not like diagnosing it when it's very, very far into the disease. It's very subtle, very intermittent when it starts. And you need to be seen by doctors who are specialized in dementia. That's all they do, is diagnose and treat the various types of dementia. Because, see, dementia is just a big umbrella term. So put dementia up above, and then a big umbrella below that, there's Alzheimer's disease. They say makes up 60 to 80% of the dementias. But there's Lewy body dementia, there's frontal lobe dementia, there's vascular dementia, there's a whole smorgasbord of dementias. So for a doctor just to say, oh, your mom's got dementia, well, that just tells you that they don't know, they haven't done the appropriate tests to know what type of dementia it is, so that it can be properly, as best treated and managed as early as possible. So that's the biggest thing, is getting to know the warning signs, keeping track of them, and you may note it may take 6 months before you have enough of these little examples of things where, like one day Dad looked at me and said, honey, I don't know how to tie my shoelaces. And I'm thinking, oh, God, he just wants attention, he's such a big baby. Okay, so I go over and I tie his shoelaces and I hug him and I kiss him and but I thought, well, that's weird. Is he making that up, or, what's that about? Because I didn't understand, see. But then the next day he knew how to tie his shoelaces, so I thought, well, what was that yesterday? That was weird. So what happens with each one of these symptoms is that you just they do it, and then they're normal the next day or 2 or 3, or, you don't see them every day, and by the time you see them again, they're fine. But if you're there every day, or you're talking to them on the phone and they say something that seems odd, write it down. Keep track of these. So when you get to that neurologist who is specialized in dementia, you'll have examples of all these things. Or even, when you get to your primary care physician and you talk to them privately, you bring your mom in for the appointment, and then you say, doctor, privately, here's examples of some of the symptoms of Alzheimer's I've noticed in my loved one. And not sure, could be other types of dementia as well. But I need a referral from you, primary care physician, to the neurologist specialized in dementia, covered by her insurance. It's in her health plan. so that we can do all the necessary tests, because the primary care physician is not going to know how to do the blood and the neurological, the memory tests, maybe even PET scan to find out what type of dementia it is. They're not trained how to do that. You know what's so interesting, you guys? I'm lecturing to doctors for their CMEs. I'm educating the GP doctors on how to recognize the early signs of this. Because anybody can diagnose it when it's far into the disease. A 10-year-old can diagnose it, And they say, Mommy, Grandpa doesn't know me anymore. So that's the key, is knowing these warning signs, keeping track of the symptoms, finding out who the dementia specialists are covered by the insurance, getting a referral from your primary care, and then getting in there so that you can get the right diagnosis, the right treatment, and be able to keep your loved one. The big key, if that's you, think about this, if that's you or that's your loved one, your goal is to keep that person more cognitively with it longer. And that's what the right diagnosis can do in terms of what we know now at this juncture that can help. You can't slow down the disease, you can't stop it, but there are some medications available that can mask the symptoms. Well, if you mask the symptoms and that keeps the person more cognitively aware, if that's me, and I can get several more months or I can get even several more years, of course it's very individual depending on your health, my gosh, give me the pill. Yes, there's side effects to all medications, so you've got to work with the right doctors who are the specialists in dementia, who are going to know the minimum amount of medication that can be used to get the maximum benefit, and has to be monitored for the, gastrointestinal problem that may occur, so it has to be really monitored by the right doctors. How's that for a long answer?
That sounds good. Before Bob goes on with this question, I was just going to find these 10 warning symptoms and signs, which is memory loss, as you've covered, difficulty performing familiar tasks, problems with language, disorientation to time and place, poor or decreased judgment, problems with abstract thinking, misplacing things, changes in mood or behavior, changes in personality, loss of initiative, and of course you've covered them very well.
Well, there's a lot of nuances to those things to watch for. So what I say is you can boil all 10 of those down to this. When your loved one does something that strikes you as illogical or irrational or odd, it is. Don't second-guess yourself. Don't engage in an argument. I mean, one day, Dad, I was there 9 months at this point, and Dad, looked at me and says, "You've never done anything for me." What? I had been there 1,000% for my parents my whole life, as they had been for me, and here I'm devoting my life to taking care of both of them, with him being so horrible to me and saying the most horrific things, cry every day, and he says this to me. I mean, just cut my heart out, So with the knowledge I have now, I wouldn't have gone in the bathroom and cried again. I would have said, okay, this seems illogical. He knows I've always been there for them. I've been such a, good daughter, unlike my brother. But anyway, I've been, here all this time. How could... Instead, I would understand. I'd say, okay, that seems illogical and irrational. It is. I'm not going to let it hurt me. I'm going to let it bounce off, and I'm going to say, oh, my gosh, I'm so sorry you feel that way. God, you know what? There's going to be this show on TV. Guess what? NASA is thinking of going to the moon again. He loved anything related to NASA. So I could distract him from the tirade he was on at me, that I had never done anything for him, which I knew wasn't true, but it still hurt like heck. But with the knowledge I have now, I would just say, guess what? there's this program on. Oh, it's coming on right now. And I had all the shows, and I just, would rotate them and put it in. So it was always new to him. I just kept getting all these different ones I could find. And have him sit down and distract him to something he was interested in. Now, why didn't one social worker in that year that I was there teach me distraction? I taught myself that, and then I didn't even know that there's books by, psychiatrists that have written how to manage this type of behavior. How would I find that kind of book? I went to the bookstore when I first started taking care of them, and there was a shelf. And I'm looking, and I bought a whole bunch of books on elder care. But I was looking, going, okay, where is Chicken Soup for the Raging Aging Soul? I do not see that in here. So I bought all the books, and they all made it sound so easy if you had a cooperative elder like Mom. Once I got Mom home, she was very cooperative, and I could get her to do anything. I couldn't get him to do anything. And so I had the easiest patient and the worst patient at the same time. So distraction, I just called it, get them to do something else, and I learned that I could take the pressure off of me if I got him involved in something else he was interested in. So then I figured out, okay, I got to have a list of these ideas. So this is what I teach caregivers to do, is what is your loved one interested in? Make a list of ideas that you can, at the drop of a hat, at your fingertips, know that you can distract them to, that will take them off the tirade of whatever it is, because they will usually forget about that, as soon as they get interested in something else. So huge technique. So distraction, that's like what they call it, like redirect. You redirect the person to talking about something else, engaging in something else. And I always tell caregivers when they're doing something that seems odd, ask their age. Just say, gee, Dad, gosh, it's going to be your birthday soon, even if it isn't. Or, God, I forget, how old are you now? Oh, I don't know, 40? I don't know. You'll be amazed at what they will say. And then when you know that they're, Mom one day said, I would say to both of them, because she had dementia too. And I would say, gosh, it's going to be you guys' anniversary soon, isn't it? How long have you guys been married? Dad would say, God, what is it, honey, 20 years? And Mom would say, no, I think it's closer to 80. And he what? So but sometimes you would be able to find out where they were, in their mind. One day Mom looked right at me. She said, where's Jackie? It still chokes me up. God, that just hits a chord, Here I've been there, and she looks right at me, I said, Mom, I'm right here. And she goes, no, your little sister. Well, I don't have a little sister, right? And she goes, no, your little sister, Jackie. And I'm like, now, nobody taught me this. Out of my little pea brain of my own, I said, well, how old is she? And she goes, well, she's about 10. Oh, I've got to get up. I've got to get to school. I got to pick her up from school. And she, pulling the blankets. I got her in the hospital bed in the family room at this point. We're on oxygen at night. We got... she's trying to get out of to go get little Jackie from school, and I'm like, I'm thinking, that little Jackie, And so I said, no, Mom, no, it's summertime. She's up at the Boulder with Aunt Aggie and Uncle Roy. And I drew from an old family memory, of when I was 10. And I said, yeah, she's with them for the summer, and she's camping, and, they're having the best time. She caught her first fish, and because they had a movie of me catching my first fish, so that was a big family memory, Then I found out, not just a few years ago, my cousin Robin says, Don't you know we baited that hook? Didn't you notice that fish was dead? Here they got movies of me catching the fish, right? I was all excited. Well, the fish was dead. I didn't know. So here my cousin Robin just ruins my childhood memory a few years ago. So anyway, I told the whole story, and I said, actually, they were at the lodge, and she called this morning while you were sleeping, and she wanted me to give you a big hug and kiss. Now, where I had the know-how to pull that out of my heart and say all that, when my heart was breaking that she didn't know me. But you know what? When I did that, she just smiled, and she, long-term memory's still good. She remembered the camping and the fishing and the fish story and da-da-da-da-da, and she calmed back down and got back in the bed, didn't try to get out. And I, of course, went in the bathroom and cried because I didn't understand yet about this dementia stuff. But I learned, I could get her not to, be so agitated if I just ask her how old she is. And then the next day, she knew me as her adult daughter, and she didn't have I wasn't going to bring up little Jackie or fish or anything. I didn't want to go back to that. But that never happened again. Isn't that so fascinating how the brain... So what you need to do is if your loved one looks at you and doesn't know who you are, or, they're talking about something that happened way in the past, just ask them their age, or how long they've been married, or how long they've lived where they live, or any of these kinds of clues that will cue you into where they are in their brain at that moment, and this can change on a dime, but find out where they're at, see, and then you can be there. You can go be there in their reality of the moment, and it's so useful. I was so upset. There was a wonderful documentary out about Alzheimer's, PBS put out, and it was just, my heart was breaking because they didn't show a lot of these techniques. They had a lot of other good things in it, but this man came to visit his mom in the nursing home, and he sat down next to her and gave her a big kiss, and she recoiled away from him. Who are you? Who are you? And he's like, Mom, it's me, Robert. No, I don't know you. Who are you? And I'm like screaming, at the TV at this point. Ask her age, ask her age, ask her age. And they didn't show that in the TV, and I'm thinking this could have helped multi-millions of people watching this right now. If he had just said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. How old is your son, Robert?" I bet you she would have said, "Well, he's 5 or he's 10 or then he could have played into that and said, "Oh, yes." And it wouldn't have hurt him so much because I could just see the pain on his face because I felt that. It's getting me choked up again. So that's a really, really good technique, isn't it?
It sounds really good. But Bob, you was going to ask some questions before I get my little long speech prepared.
Yeah, Jackie, if I may call you that.
Sure.
How did you keep your sanity?
You think I still have it? That's so good. Oh, my gosh. I swear I thought I was losing it because Dad would do something, I was sitting at the desk and all of a sudden I said, Dad, where's the stapler? He goes, I don't know. I said, gosh, it was here this morning because I was doing paperwork and we haven't gone anywhere. And I don't see it now. I've looked everywhere around here. Did you move it? I didn't move it. And then I'm thinking, well, I must have moved it then. Where did I put it? And I'm searching the whole house for this stapler, thinking I'm losing my mind. Where could I put it? And I find it in his accordion case. He had moved it and didn't even realize he put it in there. So I'm like, of course that's, weeks later when I finally found it. And I'm like, oh, my God. So you start questioning yourself. Don't question yourself. If you understand those 10 early warning signs, which, again, you can get for free off my website, go to elderrage.com .com, 2 R's are in there. Scroll down on the far left, way down. You'll see the 10 early warning signs. Those are from the Alzheimer's Association. Click on that, print those out. That's the key. And when you understand that, then you're not going to be questioning your own sanity that you think you're starting to lose it because you're under so much stress. It's just tremendous amount of stress that you're under in any caregiving situation, but particularly when you have a very challenging elder. It would have been hard enough just taking care of Mom, but to have both of them and have Dad be so mean to me, intermittently, boy, it just cut me really deeply. So yeah, if I had an opportunity to read my own book when I was going through this, or preferably before it, or attend one of my lectures, I could have gone through that. I could have walked into that house and understood immediately what was going on. I would have understood my father's first rage at me when I threw away 2 little hand towels the first day I was there. They were just crusted with food, and oh my God, they weren't going to make it through the washing machine. And I had gone to the store and I bought groceries and I bought 2 new little hand towels. And he came charging out at me from the bedroom and took those old hand towels out of the trash and threw them in my face, screaming at me, how dare I throw away his hand towels. And I'm like, Daddy, I'm so sorry. Were these special or something? I bought you 2 new ones for $1.50. I thought you'd be happy. I'll try to save them. And he screamed at me to such a level that was so unbelievable and ended up throwing me out of the house the first day I was there. Now, with the knowledge I have now, I wouldn't have sobbed my heart out. I would have understood what was happening. I would have gotten it immediately. And I would have known what to do, where to go, how to do it, boom. But I did it. And nobody does. You don't come into caregiving unless you've done it before or you've been, forward-thinking enough and you've had enough of friends going through this that you've got to get prepared, that you understand some of this stuff. But the vast, vast majority, because it's so sad and icky, and yeah, we all know that, but tell me what to do, tell me how to do it, tell me how to get prepared. That's what we want to know, and we want to do it as efficiently and quickly as possible, and that's what I decided to do. I was going to write a book that people wouldn't forget. They would remember this story, and then the last third, 2/3 is how this whole situation I went through and how I solved it, and then the last third is a self-help book with questions and answers, how to do this, how to do that, how to, the doctor's chapter, resources, everything I wish I had known, all in one place, because I'm not writing any more books.
I took enough out of you in that one book.
It sure did.
You gave us a heads up when you said when you take your parents, when they finally agree to go to the doctors, that you gave us a heads up about the diagnoses. Could you repeat that again?
You mean when you get to the primary care, or you finally get to the neurologist?
When you're at the primary care and
when you're at the primary care, they can't give you information over the phone unless you have durable power of attorney for their health care, meaning that they can disclose health care information about that person to you, unless you are a guardian of that person or durable power of attorney, because of, at least here in the States, I'm not sure how it works over there. But so what happens is if you go with your loved one, you have a much better chance. If you don't have durable power of attorney in place, if your mother won't sign that, but if you go with them to the doctor's appointment, you can, go through the appointment. But you don't want to sit in front of your mom talking to the doctor about maybe she's got Alzheimer's. You don't want to scare her with that. I would never use that term in front of them. And I would just quickly pull the doctor aside and say, here's the examples of the 10 warning signs, specific things that I've noticed that she's doing, before you go in to see Mom now. and I would like you to, give your best evaluation, but I really know that we're going to need, because it's so intermittent, it's coming and going. I know it's in the very early stage. I've studied the stages. There's several stages to this disease. She's in the very early part of this. It's coming and going. She's normal most days, but these are what I've noticed. So what I really need is I found out that Dr. Jones is covered by her insurance, who is the neurologist specialized in dementia. So what I need you to do, doctor, is not say dementia or Alzheimer's to her, just that you'd like her to be evaluated by a neurologist, because we can, little memory things, we can help with that now. So not to scare her, but to help me to get her encouraged, and so that I can get the referral from you to this other doctor. And so you have to kind of, because if you try to do that over the phone, you're going to have a hard time, because you're not allowed, you can try, and if you know the doctor and you know the office staff and all that, you can try, but it's much better if you're there in person to try to facilitate that, because they're not going to have the time to do, they're looking at everything from head to toe when you're treating an elderly person. I mean, when you're a geriatrician, an MD specialized in geriatrics, that's another type of doctor to get to as well. But most MDs are not trained in any of this. They're how many minutes do you get with the doctor when you go? 10, 15 at the most? So they're not going to have the time to do all the testing, nor are they trained in how to do it. The problem is the neurologists who are specialized in dementia, the geriatricians, that's the MDs, who are specialized in elder care. Those are good doctors to get to as well. They're few and far between. The geriatricians, it's one of the lowest paid specialties. So young people aren't going into geriatrics when we have a world that is aging. There's more older people than there are younger people. I mean, there's just tremendous amount of older people now. 78 million baby boomers all trying to take care of their parents, and they themselves getting to that point now. So there's such a need for doctors who understand how to evaluate and treat all the symptoms an elderly person has physically, and then the a dash of dementia, whatever type of dementia it may turn out to be. So these doctors aren't easy to come by. So once you finally get one, and then you finally get the referral, then you call to make the appointment, and it's a 6-month waiting list. I mean, when this finally happened to me, here I'm a year in San Francisco taking care of them. I finally understand these warning signs, finally get the name of the neurologists I need to get into, call to make the appointment, so excited. It's a 6-month waiting list. I said, are you kidding me? I can't wait another 6 months. Are you? What? So I said, well, if you have a cancellation, I can have them there, and within the hour. I'll just, I'll get them there. So I called every day, and they were getting very irritated with me. And yes, Miss Marcell, we know if you have a cancellation, if we have a cancellation to call you, and I know, but I can't take it. Please, if this was your parents, you'd be doing the same thing. I've been here for a year. I can't take anymore. And I called every day, any cancellations today, any cancellations today. 2 weeks I got in. They had a cancellation. Who did they call? Me. Boy, I jammed Mom and Dad in the car, and we got over there. And that's when they, it was a very complex diagnosis because they have to rule out reversible dementias. They have to test for B12 deficiency, a B12 deficiency, which many older people get because their stomachs do not allow the processing of the B12. And a B12 deficiency causes dementia-like symptoms. But a B12 deficiency is reversible. So it's not just you take a B12 vitamin or food with B12 if your body's not absorbing it. So a B12 deficiency has to be ruled out. Folate, thyroid deficiency, medications that they're taking all have to be evaluated. They could be be taking a medication that can be causing some dementia-like symptoms. There's just this whole host of things that have to be ruled out first. And so all that testing has to be done by doctors that are very, very specialized in this so that they can find it out early, so that it can be better diagnosed, treated, and hopefully help keep that person out of a nursing home, not needing 24/7 care as soon as they would have otherwise. And that's the big key, catching it early. By the time most people just chalk this all up. It's not that bad. Oh, she's always had a bad temper. Oh, she's always had memory lapses. She's not that bad. It's not that bad, not that bad. They chalk it up typically, statistically, for 4 or 5 years. And that's through something called MCI, mild cognitive impairment. Almost everybody just chalks it up. It's not that bad. She's still, and then they say, well, she's in her 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. They throw out a number like, well, she's getting older. Then it starts getting a little worse, and that's stage 1, 2 to 4 years. But it's still, quote unquote, not that bad yet. Yeah, she left the stove on, but we caught it. She had a little fender bender, but she's had a few of those now, but no, not too bad. And then a little more. Then, so they've had years of this creeping up. Then they have the dividing line. Then they have the crisis. They have something really awful happen where they have a car accident, or they nearly burn the house down. They've left the stove on and something's caught fire, or they've started wandering out the front door, or there's just something that's precipitated the family now screaming at the healthcare professionals, I can't take it anymore. This is just unbelievable now what's happened. And they're also stunned to find out that they're now at the beginning of stage 2. I'm talking Alzheimer's now, which makes up 60 to 80% of the dementia, so that's why we focus on it more. And all of them have different little variables to them, all the different dementias, but we're talking Alzheimer's. So stage 2 now, what we're going into, we've gone through MCI, mild cognitive impairment, that can last 5, 8 years. Stage 1, 2 to 4 years, nobody goes to the doctor. Now we have the boom, something's really bad happened. Now we're in the beginning of stage 2. Stage 2 can last 2 to 10 years. Some people move through it very quickly. Some people it takes a long time. Very individual. But this is the stage that can never be left alone. So now you've got a 4-year-old in an adult body, and you cannot leave them because you don't know what they're going to do. So now the adult children's lives are burdened, trying to help take care of them. Caregivers are tried to be hired, which works great if you have somebody like Mom, but works really bad if you have somebody like Dad who won't allow a caregiver in the house. And then you're trying to solve a situation and try to make better what if you had known was starting at MCI or in stage 1 through proper diagnosis and treatment, you could have delayed this stage 2 from starting as soon as it did. You could have masked the symptoms a little longer so that your loved one wouldn't need as much care as soon. They're going to need it regardless. But, medical science is working so feverishly because, of course, it's, just a huge mega gold mine when the next medication comes down the pipeline that keeps the person more independent longer, or maybe a cure. I think the last I heard there was 100 medications in clinical trials trying to find the next thing that will help people. And
Jackie,
so the key is keeping them early. Pardon?
I just came up to something because I was taking care of my parents for a long time, 15 years in total.
Oh my gosh.
and you mentioned that the 6 month wait.
Yeah.
Well, I actually came back 6 days later with my mother in a wheelchair and my father, in tow, all dolled up and dominating and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sir, I told you 6 months. Oh, I'm sorry. I totally forgot. I thought it was 6 days. And we would.
I love that. Good for
my
you.
My father would not leave until he got mad at me in front of the secretary. Well, you told me today. You told me today if I am not leaving here until your mother gets checked. And then I said, "Wait a minute, Dad. It's not for Mom. It's for you."
Oh.
Okay. Where's the doctor's office? And he actually marched down to the doctor's office and opened the door, and just And when there's a commercial break coming up, Andy's going to say that in a second. When I first saw the title of your book, I thought about the frustrations.
Yeah.
With none of us are not all of us. Let's put it that way. Have done the medical studies or the psychiatric studies, so we don't know what's going on. All we see is our parents are getting weirder and weirder and weirder.
Yeah.
And the older they get, and the more they deteriorate, because that's the life process. The more we have to take care of them. Like the older we got when we were their children, the less they had to take care of us. And now the older they get, the more we have to take care of them.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, this is really frustrating. My mother-in-law, I'm talking about my in-laws. She had everything physical, everything. She had osteoporosis, sugar, diabetes, you name it. She had thousands. She took at max. She took like 20 different pills for her heart, for this, and that, and then the other. My father-in-law was. He wouldn't go to a doctor. He just did not. He said, "No, I'm big. I'm bad. Ain't nobody can touch me. Nobody's wrong. Nothing's wrong with me." And we finally got an order. We finally got that order because he had drove into Italy and got into an accident. So we said, "Okay, this guy is not getting behind the wheel again." And we finally found out that we got an MRI scan, and we found out that his brain damage was so bad, his brain actually looked like Swiss cheese. Oh. And when we finally got him into a nursing home, we found out he was paranoid schizophrenic as well.
Yeah.
So and then I open up your site and you're talking about Alzheimer. After break, what made you decide the title when the book is basically about Alzheimer's? What made you decide Elder Rage? Take my father away, please, because he's driving me crazy. So. Andy, I think the break's coming up.
freedomtalkradio.co.uk. This is the most diverse, most amazing, one of the funniest radio stations you could ever listen to on the internet. I've heard so much stuff from the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, the politics, the non-politics, the schmolitics, whatever you want to call them. It's great.
live from Grimsby on Freedom Talk Radio Network, the Families Reunited show with your host, Andy Peacher, every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. UK time and 2 p.m. Eastern Time, USA and Canada. Call Andy when the phone lines are open. UK call number is 0131 618 7778. And from the USA and Canada, call 315 642 4100. Visit the website on www.freedomtalkradio.co.uk. Download TuneIn Radio and do a search for Freedom Talk Radio and listen on the move. Visit Andy's website www.parentsinjustice.co.uk and Andy's forum parentsinjustice.proboards.com.
Yeah, welcome back. This is Andy and Bob on the Freedom Talk Radio Network. It's freedomtalkradio.co.uk. And we're here on the Families United show with Jacqueline Marcell. I think Bob asked, why did you call the book Elder Rage?
Yeah, I've not having ever written a book. I've read a book, but I was like, what am I going to title it? And I thought, well, what my grandmother always used to say, once an adult, twice a child. I thought, oh, that's a great title. But then somebody who's written some books told me, people are going to go to the bookstore and they're not going to remember once, a twice, a whom, a hum, what's the name of that? And they said, well, what's it really about? I said, well, it's about Dad's rage. I mean, his rage at me, my rage at the elder care system, just infuriation about what I went through and shouldn't have had to go through. But see, it wasn't all Alzheimer's. Dad, he always had a bad temper. So I go into this behavioral stuff about how, boy, when I was a kid, if we'd understood psychology at that point, right, if every time he pounded his fist on that kitchen table and we all cowered trying not to upset Daddy and walking on eggshells our whole life, if we'd said, hey, love you, but when you're ready to talk nicely to us, we'll be back. And we should have, left the table every time. But instead, we ingrained it. We enabled him. We gave him power with that behavior that he could use it. So what happens to people like that, and I thought Dad was unique. Oh, my gosh, no. And the gazillions, thousands of emails that I've gotten from people saying, oh, my God, you had to be a fly on the wall. You wrote my story. But so they become addicted. People become addicted and trapped in their own bad behavior of a lifetime, screaming and yelling and pounding when he got angry. But now, see, it was coming out more over just silly, illogical, and more irrational things than it had ever been. Although when I was a kid, he went up and just tremendous rage about my brother eating the last drumstick. So I was used to this, ridiculousness out of him that came and went. But, you have to go back and piece together who they were. He was orphaned at 10. His mother had 18 children. Can you imagine? Only 10 lived to adulthood, but they were all orphaned when the father beat the heck out of the mother, my grandparents, and she died at 47 after bearing 18 children. And then the dad became such an alcoholic, he died. So here's all these little kids. So here's my dad, loses his mom, his dad. He's separated from his siblings. He's in an orphanage, no education. That poor little boy was just, filled with rage. And he learned to use raging intimidation his whole life. He learned that he got his way then because people would back down. So that behavior started, and you really have to be a psychologist in the trenches to go back and piece together who a person got molded to be in their childhood by their parents, and then walk a mile with their walker, and how that behavior has manifested over the years and now they're so ingrained in it and they're elderly, and now you add a dash of dementia that's coming and going. And, 1 out of 8 by the age of 65 gets Alzheimer's, and 1 out of 2, 50%, almost 50% by the age of 85. So the likelihood of a person that you're taking care of that's an older person is going to have Alzheimer's or some other form of dementia is very high. And because you don't go from normal to demented overnight, because it's such a slow process, the family becomes used to the level of dysfunction that starts to occur. And so it just gets a snowballing effect. And that's why I emphasize so much knowing those warning signs and knowing that the behaviors are not normal, and knowing that they're subtle and intermittent and they're going to come and go. And by the time they don't come and go anymore and the dementia is really, really there, anybody can diagnose it. And then the doctor's just going to throw one of the 4 medications. Your primary care is going to say, take some Aricept and some, Namenda. That's 2 of the medications. But they're really not going through what needs to be done to get to what type of dementia it really is. And that's a disservice because they're just not trained. So that's the key. So that's why when I started to think, well, what is this really about? So I said, well, make sure your first word is very important. Your first word is what searches are going to come up for when somebody's looking for help for something. So, well, it's about elders. So elder, and it's about rage. And then I thought, well, who's going to want to read that? Well, it's written with so much humor. Everything's related to a famous TV or a movie quote because I came from the TV industry. And, all the baby boomers were also media, movies and all the songs. So theme songs always were popping into my head with these crazy things that were happening. These theme songs of movies or just, songs from our history of growing up in the 50s and the 60s. And so I punctuated with those, but then I got to have a subtitle that's going to make people realize there's a lot of humor in this. And so that's when I came up with the Henny Youngman line, or Take My Father, Please, How to Survive Caring for Aging Parents. So I thought, well, that's pretty descriptive of what it is. Nobody's going to read this and not get that's what it's about,
Yeah,
but it's pretty unique because it's nonfiction, so it's true. It's a true story, and it's a self-help book. So I've never seen anything quite like it where it could really be 2 books, but I wasn't going to publish 2 books, so it's 2/3, like I said, the story, and then 1/3 of self-help, just like how to do this, how to do that, how to get them to bathe, how to get them to stop driving, how to get them to do this, everything I wish one of the healthcare professionals had said to me. It didn't.
Yeah, and maybe it was a little bit of rage from your side of it.
Oh, yeah.
I've
How could you not
be?
If you spend a year of your life, and relying on healthcare professionals and not being directed properly?
Exactly,
wow.
And this is why I'm going to read out a couple of articles. It may be relevant, it may not be, but I think it is a little bit. Over in the UK, I think this is mainly for people that have limited support when they're elderly and they have these Alzheimer's symptoms. What we've launched in November of 2013 was a Silverline service for elderly. Esther Ranson, who is the founder of Childline, has now basically launched Silverline. Esther Ranson has launched a new helpline for pensioners. With this year's World Mental Health Day being dedicated to older adults, there have been no better time to Esther Ranson's new phone service. Its funding comes from £5 million of the lottery fund. The Silverline is a free 24-hour phone service for the elderly. This new initiative comes 27 years after Esther launched Childline. Silverline aims to combat the isolation of the elderly by providing a friendship, information and advice service with trained volunteers. These volunteers will encourage to keep regular contact with its users, to give them self-worth and all the services they need. The Department of Health suggests over half of the 75-year-olds live by themselves and that this loneliness causes serious physical mental damage. Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt said, well, to cut a long story short, we think they've put this service on like they do for the children, particularly for the elderly, to see where they're coming from, what they need, send in professionals, send in social workers. In some cases, you're on your own, you're losing your memory, you can't walk very well, you're 70 or 80. That's a good idea. Let's get a social worker in and put you in a home. Let's take all your savings to pay for it. So that's a bit of another sort of opposites, I suppose, to what you're doing, because a lot of loving families will do their level best for people. That was probably aimed at the single people on their own. The next article I've got is we've recently, this was November 2 last year, new hope for Alzheimer's sufferers after new treatment restores memory in minutes. This sounds good. Doctors are calling for a clinical trial of an experimental drug treatment that is claimed that can reverse the symptoms of Alzheimer's in minutes. The US researchers say the treatment allowed an 82-year-old sufferer to recognize his wife for the first time in many years. In the UK, specialists believe the claims should be properly tested, as only a few patients have been tested so far. The treatment involves injecting a drug called Enbrel, E-N-B-R-E-L, which is normally used to treat arthritis, into the spine at the neck. Patients are then tilted to encourage blood flow into the brain, where the drug is designed to block a chemical responsible for inflammation. At least one Alzheimer's patient had his symptoms reversed in minutes, while others have shown some continuing improvement in problems such as forgetfulness, confusion after these weekly injections. They need less help from carers during treatment, which appears to reach a plateau at 3 months. Around 50 people are being treated by the Institute of Neurological Research, a private clinic in California, with some having had injections for 3 years. In one case, the clinic has video evidence of Marvin Miller, 82, which showed he was unable to answer basic questions by a nurse, but after treatment, he was able to do a lot better, read things, write things, and remember things. Again, it's a long story, but the professional Edward Tobinick of the University of California, Los Angeles, and director of the Institute, is leading the research. He said the latest report was an in-depth account of one patient's response to treatment. He said it makes practical changes that are significant and perceptible, making a difference in his ability to do activities of daily living, such as getting around, accomplishing things and conversing. It's not for every patient, he's saying, and so there's hope there. Now, my criticism on the healthcare system, there is a drug about, it's always been about, and what this drug does is called Letrozin, Lecithyme. Letrozin is used for memory and mental acuity, and I'll read it out in a second. That with garlic, with all these vitamins, multivitamins, and lemons every day of your life, from as early as 45, 50 years of age. Letrozin, lemons, garlic. You will not have any Alzheimer's. You will not have any major problems with your health. It cleanses the liver, and it's the liver that gives the brain the information and the rest of the body the happiness, I suppose, to function properly. Letrozin is one of the special chemicals that easily crosses the blood-brain barrier. Believe that Letrozin, I can't even say that, it's necessary anyway for the metabolic processes that occur in all cells, but also for the constant regeneration of the phospholipid-rich membranes of the brain. The choline containing, sorry about all these words, they're a bit big. It's an abundant form of lecithin and vitally important for the biosynthesis of the important neurotransmitters acetylcholine malfunctions of which are involved in. I think in plain English, it helps the brain remember things. It's good for Huntington's, Friedreich's ataxia, Alzheimer's, and Guillain-Barré syndrome. Interestingly, it has also been found in a lot of diseases of other areas. So basically, it helps you big time with. It's supposed. Oh yeah, it's also needed to balance your cholesterol. So, and it transports all the fatty stuff around the body, which in hand helps the brain. So that with lemons daily, 2 times a day, and garlic, and obviously with all the other treatments.
Well, let me comment. Can I comment on all this?
Yeah,
okay. There's a gazillion of these types of things, and here's what is known scientifically now. Alzheimer's is now being termed type 3 diabetes. So it all comes down to self-care, making sure that you do the best that you can with your own care, that you don't get diabetes. Now, the world is just, here in the United States, we've gone from 5% of the country being obese or overweight 70 years ago. Now we got 70% obese or overweight here. About 100 million people, a third of the country, are either diabetic, about 25 million diabetic, another 75 million pre-diabetic. Now, what happens in diabetes is the pancreas is shooting out insulin, but the cells become insulin resistant from too much sugar, starch, and grains. That's what shoots the insulin out. And so the cells, so that's our, standard American diet that we've exported around the world. And the rest of the world is getting fat too, and lots of diabetes. So what happens is the cells, our 10 trillion cells, become insulin resistant. They have little receptors on them that normally, when the pancreas shoots out the insulin to take the glucose, take the sugar to the cell, and gives it the energy. Those cells then won't open up and let that insulin in, and that's called insulin resistance. So the pancreas shoots out more insulin, saying, come on, let us in. Nope, not going to let you in. Eventually the pancreas dies out. In the beginning it's pre-diabetes, where eventually the pancreas opens up and the cells open up and lets the insulin in, but there's so much insulin circulating into the blood at this point, and insulin is the hunger hormone, makes people hungry, and they want to eat the foods that they love and that they're addicted to, the sugars, the starches, and the grains. And insulin is the fat-storing hormone, because when the cells won't open up, the fat cells have an open-door policy and say, come on over here, we'll take you. So, and the person is literally malnourished because they're not getting the nutrients into the cells. So Mother Nature drives them through ghrelin, which is a hormone in their stomach that makes them go eat more, and they don't get the signal to stop eating, the leptin. They become leptin resistance, which is the hormone that's in the adipose tissue that sends the signal to the hypothalamus that you're full. All gets dysregulated. So when we think that we've got, all these people that are gluttons and sloths, no, they're just chemically addicted to these foods, all the fast food, all the processed food. They're not eating whole, real, good food, and all the toxins. Their cells aren't able to take up the insulin. So they're getting fatter and fatter and fatter and malnourished, and women are having the children there's an obesity problem in 6-month-olds now. Never seen this glut of 6-month-olds that are not driving to the fast food restaurant. they got addicted in the womb, and they've inherited their cells aren't working properly, so they're constantly hungry and craving. They're just as addicted as their mother is. Now what they've discovered is that the brain also, they never knew there was another organ that secreted insulin other than the pancreas. The brain does. So if there's a dysregulation of insulin problem in the body because of the pancreas, the likelihood is if you're secreting it in the brain, there's a dysregulation of it there as well. And that could be what the beginning of dementia is. They don't know yet. Many of the scientists are calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. So it's imperative that people learn to, Michael Pollan says it best, eat real food, mostly plants, not too much. So if you're overweight, what you want to do is, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, this is from my research on this at length, please talk to your doctor. But what you should consider, and you can research this, is cutting back on your carbohydrates, your sugar, all sugars, starch, potatoes, and all grains, because most of the grains have the gluten in it, and they're finding out now most people have a gluten sensitivity, even if you're not full celiac disease. So the reason you want to cut back as much as you possibly can is because you don't want to shoot out your insulin. You don't want to spike your insulin. You want to get that to stop doing that. And what happens is you feel terrible because you're craving those foods and you got to go through the withdrawal. And in some people that can take a week, and other people it can take a month, and you really feel lousy, and so you grab your ice cream or whatever it is that you're addicted to, and you feel better. The problem is if you understand the science and that you have to, like any addiction, you must go through the withdrawal to get to the other side of it. I've done this. I was an ice cream-aholic my whole life, and then when this research finally came out numerous years ago now, I started to research this, and I did it myself, and I went, oh, my God, this is really difficult to get on the other side of it. Once you do, then you don't even crave those foods. Your blood tests, you lose all your weight, much easier. It's low carbohydrate eating. It's all, eat it, everything, as many vegetables as you can possibly eat, very low glycemic fruits, like berries, which are so high antioxidants, little citrus, but you want to count your carbohydrates. Most of the low-carbohydrate diets, somewhere around, it's very individual, depending on how many carbohydrates your body can accommodate to make your cells insulin sensitive again and not insulin resistant. Some people can get away with 50, 60 carbohydrates. Some people have to go down to as low as 20 carbohydrates. So you work with your doctor, and you finally get the weight off, and you get your cells that your leptin starts working, your ghrelin starts working. You get the signal you're full. You get a proper signal for hunger. You're not starving all the time. You're not white-knuckling it through another diet. You're never hungry because you eat when you're hungry. You eat till you're satiated. You're eating, and I say eat 100% organic if you possibly can. And people say, oh, it's so expensive. Well, you can pay now or pay later. So you eat as healthy as you can. Yes, that garlic is fantastic. It's a high antibacterial, antimicrobial agent. But chop it up and let it air for about 10 minutes before you consume it or put it into anything. It will produce a tremendous amount of the allicin, which is the beneficial part of the garlic. So you chop it up. When I first start cooking, I have a couple garlic a day, and I start cooking. I chop it up and set it aside while I'm preparing everything else, and then at the last minute I put the garlic on top of whatever it was that I was cooking. So garlic, onions, all the vegetables, mushrooms, phenomenal. Lemon juice in the morning and some warm water, phenomenal, with green tea to antioxidants. So what you're talking about is flushing out the toxins in the body, getting rid of all this stuff that we've eaten. If you eat real food, organic, not too much, mostly plants, pastured animals that aren't eating soy and corn, which is primarily genetically modified foods. If you're not up on GMOs, Google that. You got to know about that. Genetically modified organisms is very controversial. Probably a good idea to avoid it if you're trying to get your health back. We've been a science experiment for 25 years or so. But you eat, and if you're a vegetarian, you got to really know how to combine your rice and your beans and your protein, your plant proteins to get enough protein. If you're not, then how to get the right proteins from your animal products, the pastured eggs, the good fats. You want to eliminate all the trans fats, all the vegetable oils. You want to cook with extra virgin coconut oil. It has a high smoke point, so it can tolerate sauteing your vegetables in that, where they now know that the olive oil, you don't want to cook with olive oil. You want extra virgin olive oil. You want to cook very, very low heat if you cook with it at all. It's better not to heat it. Actually destroys some of the properties of it, so you don't want to heat up olive oil. All these years we've been cooking with it. So use the coconut oil for cooking, olive oil on your salads or drizzle over your fish after you've cooked it. And all the herbs and spices, as many herbs and spices as you can get. The turmeric, they're suspecting, the curcumin, the curry, lower incidence of Alzheimer's in India. So it's believed possibly, and from the studies that are being done on turmeric, is that it may be preventative and helpful for Alzheimer's disease. There's a lower incidence of it in India. So I sprinkle turmeric on everything, oregano on everything, rosemary, cinnamon, and cloves. And sprinkle cloves in my tea. Cloves has a very high antioxidant value. So you research the spices, the herbs. You use fresh, organic when you buy those, or if you buy the dried ones, that they're organic. All the nuts and seeds, buy all the different nuts and seeds. They have oils in them, so you mix them up, put them in the freezer so that they don't go rancid on you. And you have just tremendous nutrient value in nuts and seeds every day. And you just do the most healthy diet you can so that you can clean up your liver, clean up your pancreas, so that you're not shooting out the insulin. That may be protective, is what they're most are believing now in the brain as well, to clean out the tangles and the plaques that may be starting. Maybe it can help reverse it. Maybe it can help it stop from growing. This is all a new burgeoning science of trying to find out what's really happening. But this is the suspicion. There's 2 books that I would recommend. One is Dr. William Davis, a cardiologist who wrote Wheat Belly. It's all the rage over here in the States. That will explain a lot of this, but why you don't want to eat wheat and gluten foods, meaning barley, rye, wheat at all, and then even oats, because they have a high glycemic index, till you get your weight off and you stop spiking your insulin, and you get your insulin so your cells are insulin sensitive and they'll take up the insulin again. Then you decide which carbohydrates you want to add back. Gee, I'd really like to have some oatmeal. Okay, you count your carbohydrates. And then, I'd really like to have a sweet potato. Okay, you count your carbohydrate. I'd really like to have some brown rice. Okay, you count your carbohydrate. So that once you finally get your weight off, you're insulin sensitive, you're counting your carbohydrates to find your personal carbohydrate level that your body can tolerate before you start gaining weight. And like I say, some people have, there's people that have to go 20, 25 carbohydrates a day. They're so carbohydrate intolerant that they have to go that low. And other people that can, that are athletes that can handle 100 carbohydrates a day, or 2. It just depends. But most people that have had a weight problem, this is, goes to the low carbohydrate craze that's out there now. Seems like most people have to be under 50, under 40, somewhere around there. For myself, I know I have to be under 40. I've determined that. So there's a lot of science now coming out, and Mother Nature has done it best. It's all there. There's more power at the end of your fork, which you put in your mouth, than what is in a prescription bottle. So, unfortunately, most people wait.
Oh, sorry, Bob. We're all doing the same thing. Sorry, Jacqueline. I think we both agree with you, really. And I think what the truth is, it's not about the science. I think it's been there for years. I think we need to trust the old dears more, the older people, the people who experiment on healthy eating. Definitely that wheat belly. I need to have a look at that book.
Yeah, another one I was going to mention is Dr. David Perlmutter's Grain Brain, where he goes into the science of what I'm talking about. It's a Times New York bestseller. I think both of them are, but this one is more. It just came out, and it's all about how the grain brain is a direct contributor to Alzheimer's and the current science on it. So you'd be fascinated in that one too.
Bob.
Yeah, and I must admit, I've been vegan for about 2 years now.
Good for you.
And I have noticed, because I have a slow working thyroid gland, I have noticed that my memory, here you go, guys, my memory and my concentration level have skyrocketed ever since I stopped eating chicken or cow or anything like that. Yeah, every once in a while I need my omega, so I do eat fish every once in a while. But
good wild fish, wild salmon is the best. Yep.
Wild salmon, herring. Herring, it's full of omega-3.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you need that.
It cleans the system. Garlic, all the antioxidants. Yeah,
yep.
I'm not too much of a garlic eater because I don't want to be propelled by gases, if you know what I mean. But these are all tips to for people that even you're just misplacing your keys, guys. Next day, have a little garlic, and you'll remember where your keys are. You'll remember where you left your headset, I have a question for you, right quick, Jackie. Mm-hmm. What is your position when it comes to the elderly who are being abused in the different different home care systems?
It's terrible, isn't it? Of elder abuse. I speak at conferences on elder abuse is another area of extreme interest to me, and just awful. So security cameras, need to be always in the room so that somebody can be caught if they are abusing a person. The problem is there's not enough people to do the work for all the elders that need care now, let alone the huge numbers that are coming. People don't want to be caregivers. It's hard. Imagine doing that work. I'd give anybody that does that kind of work tremendous admiration for the good people that do that work, because the vast majority have very good hearts and are doing very good work. But there's always going to be an element of, people that aren't good, that get into whatever line of work. It's in every line of work. Unfortunately, when it's your loved one that's been abused, and you entrusted the care, of a facility to them, and many times they're hiring people that are felons or that are, they're untrained and they don't have training programs. I've spoken at so many healthcare professionals at these conferences, educating caregivers, because if they're not educated how to deal with a difficult patient, and they've got somebody who is afraid of them or spitting on them or calling them nasty names or hitting them and won't get undressed and won't eat or won't take the shower or won't do this or won't do that, and they're not trained how to manage that behavior, their human nature, if they've got a short fuse, they could cross that line very subtly in a way of just, instead of getting the person out of bed and into the wheelchair, very carefully, they could just retaliate and just, boom, let them flop into the chair because they're so mad about being hit and spit in the eye. So they've got to be trained, and unfortunately there's just so many people that are needing care, which brings me back again to what we're talking about personal responsibility for our own health. You can't rely on the healthcare system to take care of you. So you've got to take care of your health. Now, the problem is this information is now on the Internet. It wasn't, when we were kids, there was no Internet. You'd go buy a book, and read about something, but it wasn't so easy to research like it is now, this knowledge about nutrition that's it will reach a tipping point. I've seen it just in the last several years just exponentially explode with understanding how, this power of what's in these foods. So the problem is everybody's addicted. People are so addicted to the sugar, the starch, and the grains that lights up the dopamine center of the brain. And instead of one scoop of, and I can speak from personal experience, one scoop of frozen yogurt doesn't do it for you. You got to have, a large. You need more and more. It's that tolerance that happens with alcohol, cigarettes, any kind of drug, gambling, any type of addiction. The dopamine center gets such a thrill out of that frozen yogurt, let's say, and then you need more of it, and then you crave it, and you want it, and then you go without it, and boom, you're up at, 5 o'clock in the morning jogging to the donut store looking for the hit. So people go on diets that are they go on these very restrictive diets. They white-knuckle it, but they're trying to include their favorite foods, so they're just going to have a little bit of it's like taking an alcoholic to the wine country and saying, well, you're just going to have a taste at each of the winery. You're not going to really have a glass. It's like taking a crack addict to a party and they got lines of Coke and telling you can just have half a line of Coke here. It won't hurt you. Once you're addicted, whatever your substance is that you're addicted to, you can't have a little of it. You have to go off of it. Well, that's the problem. Everybody's addicted to these foods, the chemicals that are in these foods, that the chemistry that the food companies do. Another book by Michael Moss, Salt, Sugar, and Fat, about the food industry and how they spend multi-millions of dollars just for the right formulation to be able to make that food so irresistible that you cannot eat just one. You will buy it again and again and again and again. Well, that's their business, to make money. The problem is it addicts the reward center of the brain, the dopamine center of the brain, and makes everybody crave it. So even though they know this knowledge, they know they need to eat their strawberry, medical science only knows 25% of what's in that strawberry. They don't know the other 75%. They know it's good for you. They know Mother Nature put it in there, but they don't know what it is. So people know it's good for them, but they're too to the other substances, and so they want these substances, and they just can't get off of them. So that's another part of my mission, is understanding of the addiction process and how to get through it by eating good quality food, good quality fats, protein, whatever you have to do to get through that several weeks of withdrawal to get to the other side, to be able to then understand the science and say, okay, I get it, I was an addict with these foods and I'll never go back. I mean, you could not pay me now to eat ice cream, where before I would have cut your arm off if you got in my way. So I know how strong the addiction is. And I tell people, think about fen-phen. Remember the drug fen-phen that worked for 25 million prescriptions of that were given. And it worked for everybody. Even my brother, who was massively obese, lost weight for the first time with ease on fen-phen. It disrupted the dopamine center and the serotonin center. It boosted the serotonin so you felt good, and it interrupted this reward center, this dopamine center of the brain. That's what fen-phen did. Unfortunately, on a small percentage of those 25 million, people had heart disease, an unintended consequence of the drug. They got valve problems with their heart, and people died, and they had to have transplants, and so, of course, they had to pull the drug. And all those people who lost weight on fen-phen effortlessly, I mean, just the weight just fell off of them. They still had the same childhood traumas. They still had the same spousal problems, job problems, kids problems. So it's nothing psychological. People that have a weight problem think it's psychological. That, gee, why can't I control myself? Why can't I start eating a bag of potato chips and I can't stop? What is wrong with me? It's not psychological. It is biochemical. And when people finally get that, it takes the shame off of not being able to control yourself and puts it onto the science of the importance of understanding that you are as chemically addicted as a crack addict and wanting to eat that food. And it's hijacked your brain, and the only way out of it is a lot of misery for a few weeks, maybe a month. It took me a month to get to the other side of it. And that's the message that has to get out there, that the doctors are trying to get out. And that's when we're going to see a tipping point for people.
I totally agree with you there, Jacqueline. I can't say that I'm the healthiest eater, but I'm learning, because you learn as you go along. And I don't like garlic either. In fact, I don't take garlic, but I do take the lemons. I'm now buying the lecithin, and my body's feeling a lot better now. When I had gout recently, I did go to the doctors and get some tablets.
You know what causes gout? They used to think of purine foods, which also contributes to it. That's the tomatoes, the potatoes, the eggplant, the peppers. Those are purine-rich foods. But what gout is more commonly caused by is fructose, sugar. Too much sugar in the diet will cause uric acid, and the body tries to take it to the farthest extremity, the big toe. I had this. I know about it. And I would get tested for uric acid. No, you don't have gout. You know, you're fine. You're fine. I'm like, sometimes I get this excruciating pain in my big toe. What is this? So I started researching it. And then when I was able to finally get off the sugar 100%, never had a pain in the big toe since. And I can eat all the tomatoes, potato, peppers, eggplants. The purines don't bother me at all. It was the fructose.
No,
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, they never told me the purines. They actually said it's this time of year and you've probably eaten too much cake, too much alcohol. Throughout the year, people have all these things in, up and down dosages. But at Christmas, you tend to eat chocolate bars, cake, alcohol. They're just examples of sweet things. And that's why I get it at Christmas only.
Exactly. But see, if you went through the withdrawal like I'm talking about and you got to the other side of it, that stuff would not even call to you anymore. I was at a Christmas party. They had this huge buffet table of desserts, just of the desserts. Now, normally I would at least walk over and look at it, and I'm not going to eat it. But this time, after the party, I realized, what did they serve for dessert? I saw there was a table over there, but I didn't even walk over to look at it. Now, that's big. That tells you how much I've gotten to the point of this stuff is deadly. This is poison. This stuff is going to taste, I always tell people, the second bite of pie is going to taste just like the first. So have the first bite if you can't stand it. And, make it into water in your mouth before you swallow it, and then realize second bite's going to taste just the same. So why bother? So you had 15 seconds of pleasure, and now your body's got 24 hours or more to try to get rid of it. Your pancreas is shooting out insulin. Your cells are going, no, you can't come in. So your pancreas is going to shoot out more insulin. So what's the point? So it's a process. I got to tell you, it's a process. It's not easy, especially when you have all your family and everybody saying, "Oh, you got to taste my this. You got to try this. You got to taste this." And you're just looking at it, seeing a big red X with a skull on it, knowing it's deadly. But I grew up. I never ate a meal. My mother baked every day, and we never ate a meal. The only reason we ate was to get to dessert. She baked. I never had a store-bought cookie till I was 16. She baked every day of my life. So, of course, she never ate it. We all got addicted. I was sugar addicted from the time I was a very, very, very tiny little kid, and just craving that stuff all the time, white-knuckling it, losing the same 30 pounds. I wish I had a nickel. Again and again and again on every diet program, going to psychiatrists. I don't know why I can't control myself. Do they explain any of this? No. Must be your childhood. Well, I got to tell you, I got the same childhood I've always had. It's not psychological. It's all biochemical. Once you solve the biochemistry, you're going to be so mad you spend your whole life. I'm just furious. If I had known this when I could have had a whole different life. It's all biochemical. Isn't that something?
It's that problem, though. Alcoholics never really get cured. Drug addiction,
yep.
You never really get cured. So
yep.
you manage, you get there, you try your best, and most people who are determined never, have a relapse. But
I'm smart enough to know that I'm.
That's easy.
Yeah.
It's the sugar bit and the food stuff is more of an addiction than the alcohol and the drug addiction, I think.
Exactly. You're right. So that's why I know. I come from a long line of alcoholics. I never drank because I saw all my relatives alcoholics, all of them. So I thought, okay, that's not going to be for me. So I never tempted that, not realizing that that my mother was doing to us was addicting us with the sugar. And so just the same neural pathway, the dopamine center of the brain. Same kind of thing. The only difference is, you don't crash cars, when you've eaten too many scoops of ice cream like you do when you've had too many drinks, or kill people on the freeway, or, you know what I mean, or lose your job. So the thing, I know that I will always be a sugar addict. I know it. So there's no way I'm going to tempt, now that I've gone through it, I have so many years of being insulin sensitive again. That's where you finally get to, you go, it's so easy. And I say to my friends that have a weight problem, they go, oh, you make it sound so easy. I go, it's really hard at first. But once you get to the other side of it, and then you realize how much better you feel, and your blood tests, your triglycerides drop, all your markers, blood pressure is perfect, your cholesterol is perfect, your insulin is working, you're not starving, hungry, and dieting all the time. You're like, why would I possibly want to eat anything that could pop me out of this and set me on a binge where I can't get back to where I am now? So it just becomes something you're just never going to want to do again. It's like I say, it's the biggest shock of my life, really. The biggest shock of my life, even more than what I went through with my parents, is this whole biochemical drug addiction to the sugar that we're all addicted to. And 80% of our food products, when we go to the grocery store, 80% of the processed food products, anything that's in a package with a barcode, 80% of those have high fructose corn syrup in it. And wow, the fructose is the addiction. It's just, Dr. Robert Lustig, if you don't know that name, Lustig, Dr. Robert Lustig, he's out of San Francisco. He's like the rock star now in the anti-sugar movement for the last numerous years. And he's got a number of, all these doctors that I've mentioned, they have, web talks and podcasts that you can listen to their interviews. And Dr. Lustig has one called The Bitter Truth. It's 4 million people have watched this. It's all on the science of sugar. And he's, very much an advocate for regulating governmentally, because people are just too addicted. They can't stop. So Michael Bloomberg in New York tried, to get the ban on the large, who could drink that much soda? It's just tremendous amount of sugar, and that's what's keeping the problem. But it got voted down. People don't want to be told what to do. So yeah, it's personal responsibility. But when you're dealing with an addict, how many addicts have personal responsibility? Getting the fix comes first. This is why drug addicts lose their jobs, their families. Alcoholics, they just they go into rehab 4, 5, 10 times to try to get a handle on it. Well, that's the same thing with people going on diets. 95% of people, the statistic is, after 5 years will gain the weight back. 99% will gain it back after 9 years. That tells you how strong the addiction is. So it's not until these programs that are out there, and I've been through all of them. I got all the pins from all the programs. And then you eat your favorite foods again, and boom, you're addicted again. They have to start teaching the biochemistry and take away the shame that people can't control themselves. They are just addicts, and how to get through the addiction to get to the other side. Everybody goes, you got to write a new book. I'm like, I'm not writing any more books.
I think I've got one last question to wrap up on.
Okay.
Only because I've been reading history quite a lot.
I love history too.
Yeah, I've been listening to our co-host on a Saturday, Tim. He does a lot of history, and the question related to all this, not so much elder abuse and elder age and all that stuff, but the addiction and the unhealthy eating. What went wrong? In the last 100 years, people were thin, people were eating healthy.
Want me to tell you?
What sort of went wrong?
Okay. There's a guy named Ansel Keys who put out a report that said that he showed 7 countries, that these 7 countries had the highest fat intake, and they also had the highest obesity. That got through the McGovern committee here in the United States, that they said, it must be the fat causing heart disease. Heart disease was going up, so we're going to take all the fat out of everything. So they got all the food companies to remember the low-fat craze in the late 70s, early 80s. It was just take all the fat out of everything. And everything tastes like cardboard, so they had to do something, so they put sugar in it. And then they subsidized the corn for high fructose corn syrup. And so then everybody started eating sugar, and then what happened? Boom, heart disease went through the roof. So we've gone now heart disease being the number 1 killer, and second, cancer. 50% of all men get cancer in their lifetime now. When we were kids, it was 1 out of 60 or something like this. Now it's 50% of all men get cancer in their lifetime, and 1/3 of all women just 10 years ago. Now they say 1 out of 2.5 women. So women are catching up. So we got to wake up. It's the sugar, it's the starch, the grains that convert to sugar quickly in the body and cause a metabolic disorder where you have the high cholesterol, high blood pressure, high sugar, the prediabetes, then the diabetes, which then a large percentage of people with diabetes will go on to develop Alzheimer's disease. So the connection with dementia to metabolic disorders, very strong. So you got to feed your kids right and start early.
Yeah, I'm glad I mentioned me lemons and garlic and lecithin.
And all that's good. It's all good. But the big thing is eliminating the bad foods. It's not just about adding the good. You got to eliminate the bad. I have vegan friends who still eat all the processed and fast foods, and they think they're being healthy. No.
I'll tell you a little secret now, Andy, that what I made when I was over at your place had garlic in it. It had it had a clove of garlic in it, and that's what
I love it. After you eat it for a while, you won't have that problem. Or you can buy capsules that won't repeat on you, that they won't release until they're down into the intestine, so they don't you don't get the repeating. There's all kinds. There's a million different of these kinds of things. The bottom line: eat real food, and don't eat processed foods, fast foods. Eliminate the sugar, starches, and grains. And go to my website, elderrage.com, if you think you're going to be a caregiver, know a caregiver, are going to need a caregiver, ever heard of a caregiver, it'll help you.
All right.
Yeah, we are running out of time, but, I mean, we've got a little bit of recording time after it goes off. But I was just going to play your 1 minute promo again, and then Asher, one last question, then we'll wrap it up. So it won't get cut off at the moment until we cut it off.
Okay. This is Jacqueline Marcell, the author of Elder Rage, or Take My Father, Please, How to Survive Caring for Aging Parents. If you're coping with caregiving now or think it is just about to befall you, you just have to read my book so you don't needlessly go through all the pitfalls that I did. It's a tough subject, but I promise laughter out loud as you learn everything you ever wanted to know about elder care but were afraid to ask. After you learn how I solved the seemingly endless crisis, I include answers to the toughest caregiving questions, tons of resources, and an enlightening chapter by a renowned dementia specialist, a physician's guide to treating dementia, which makes Elder Rage valuable for everyone from the family to the physician. I am honored that Elder Rage has received 45 prestigious endorsements, including Hugh Downs, Regis Philbin, Dr. Dean Adele, Duke University, and Johns Hopkins Memory Clinic. For more information that may change your life, please log on to elderrage.com.
That's brilliant. And the question was going to ask, you said you did a radio show for many years until they shut down. I know we're only a small organisation, but we are looking for hosts that want to talk, about their subjects free of charge, your own time zones, and we are in all the big tuning apps on the mobile phones. We do Blog Talk at the moment, but we are moving to Spreaker, which is gonna, most shows get several hundred. We often don't get many callers, unless it's a special show. But after the show, we get many thousands of listeners. We YouTube them, podcast them, and everything. So just you probably had enough of talking by now.
Yeah, I'm not up for doing another radio show right now. I produced my show, hosted my show. It was a lot of work. So what I do more now is, I always did, but what I love the most is speaking at conferences. So I speak a lot at the bigger conferences. But, yes, I know all about what you're trying to do. And I applaud you because I know how much work it is.
Yeah, we concentrate mainly with Freedom Talk Radio and Una and Una's You're Not Alone on Facebook and Children Scream to Be Heard. We do concentrate on the children, but having said that, the elderly people are sometimes children as well because of the vulnerability.
Yes.
And we do, we're linking up with a lady, Dr. Gopal, her name is, and she's doing a conference on mainly sex trafficking, but it also involves elder abuse and child abuse to the extremes, not sort of your level, but so what I was trying to say is that there's always scope to meet new people through connections, and we'd like to stay in touch. You might send us info, we might send you info, and it may lead to another show.
You never know, of course. Well, I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome, Jacqueline. Or Jackie.
All right, Jackie, great talking to you. Thanks for coming to the show, and keep it safe, huh?
Okay. All right. Thanks again for having me. I appreciate it. Bye now.
No problem. If you need a copy of the show, just email me.
Okay.
And then we'll send you it.
All righty. Right. Bye, guys. Thanks again.
Take care. Just a quick promo for Saturday's show. We've got with Tim and Andy on the Knights of Liberty show, 12 noon Eastern and 5 p.m. UK time. We've got private investigator George Sheld Very interesting chap on PI. It tells us all about that kind of security stuff that I don't understand as usual. And then the best one, I think, and this was me saying it in front of you, Bob, forget Orion Talk Radio, forget the bulls of this world thinking, they're better than us. On Monday, on The Truth Police, we have Kana Bodman. Most people will say, well, who's she? Well, Kana was Ronald Reagan's press secretary. So she tells us all about the White House, the Soviets, and to start off with, she'll talk about a book. So that's going to be fantastic on Saturday. That's really it from now, Bob, for today, I think, and we've enjoyed it again as usual, and we'll be back very shortly. It's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Keep it safe, and never forget you are not alone.
You're definitely not alone, and that's Facebook. UNA, you're not alone. freedomtalkradio.co.uk. Join the Families Reunited show Tuesday and Thursday next week, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. London. We've got some up-and-coming bands, and it's going to be on a Tuesday night. We're going to rename the show Me and Bob's Music Night, and it's going to be fantastic. So from us this Thursday, goodbye.